You're listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. You can hear the show live Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN and streaming at accesswdun.com. You can find all things Martha Zoller at marthazoller.com. It is the Martha Zoller Show, and gosh, it feels a little like Christmas because we're talking to Richard Paul Evans. He is the #1 best-selling author of The Christmas Box. We talked to him many years ago, in fact, in person. He came into the studio when The Christmas Box was out, and I got the key to the city at that point in time, and we're so happy to have him back to talk about his new book, A Christmas Memory. Richard Paul Evans, thank you so much for being with us today.
It made me so happy to see your name on my schedule today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been, and it's like we've gotten old together. Now we've got our children are growing up or grown up. We've got all kinds of things going on. But this has been, your books have been a tradition in our family to review, to look at. And now I have grandchildren that I'm introducing these books to. So it's a very nice time to get into the Christmas spirit.
I actually just got back from Texas. My daughter just got her doctorate. She's a doctor now. And it's like, oh my gosh, she was a little girl when we started this. We've come a long way.
It's a long way from Kinko's, right?
Exactly. In some ways, though, I feel like I've gone back home. I mean, because this book reminds me, I've written 45 New York Times bestselling novels. This is definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite, and it feels like The Christmas Box all over again.
Well, and tell us about A Christmas Memory.
Well, Christmas Memory it's autobiographical. I did sit down and say I was going to write this. Last year at this time, I was very sick. I caught pneumonia, and after 3 weeks, I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse and close to being hospitalized. And then I got COVID on top of it. And I was just very, very sick. And then this book started coming to me. And I wrote it in bed with a notepad. I'm just writing this down and thinking, I had that COVID fog. It's probably awful. And months later, when I started to recover, I started reading it. And I thought, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever written. I got teary-eyed just even reading it. And so it was about my childhood. When I was 9 years old, it was 1967. And after a huge loss in my family, my dad lost his job, and we picked up and moved into an abandoned home in Utah. And it wasn't completely abandoned. It was filled with rats. It was a rat-infested home. It had been vacant for almost 3 years. And my mother was suffering from severe depression at the time. My dad was just gone. And there was an old man, Mr. Foster, who watched over and took care of me during this time. So it's a book about compassion. It's a book about hope in the hardest of most difficult of times.
Well, because we do have to go on, don't we? The options are, when you have horrible things happen, is what do you do next, right? And it can be difficult. The last 10 years for me have been very difficult. I've lost my brother, my sister, and my mother during that period of time. And
I'm sorry.
And it was, I was just like, Lord, I know you only give me what I can handle. But I had to find the sense of humor in it, in that my older sister, Pam, who's 12 years older than I am, she is like the complete opposite of me. She's a lot more introverted. She is very different. And I was like saying, Lord, you must have a sense of humor that after all of this, who's left in our family is me and Pam. Because we were able to move on.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's especially this time of the year, I think we think a lot about those kind of feelings and about family and our losses. And so I think one of the reasons this book is doing so well is because it speaks to that. I had a woman come to a book signing. She said she had just lost her sister, and she bought 14 copies. She said, this book is the first thing that has brought me peace. And so she was sharing it with all of her family members and siblings and friends, everyone who was mourning at that time. So books are powerful things. They start revolutions. And this is a book of healing, I think, and it's also just to get you in the Christmas spirit.
Well, and also your books especially, and are those kinds of books. I mean, I do that same thing. I will buy several copies to give to people because books are still that thing. Even though I do Audible and I listen to podcasts and I read books in a digital form. I mean, I've got books everywhere and I read them in all kinds of forms. There is still nothing that replaces that holding a book in your hand, turning the pages and reading it. There's nothing that replaces that. And I think that's kind of part of the human spirit. We like to touch and feel and see. And in this crazy social media world where people are scrolling on their phones all the time and they're doing all that kind of stuff, you can still bridge the gap with a book. And that's so wonderful.
I agree. One thing that is different this year, have you seen my movie on Netflix?
I have not.
Did you know about it? It was Thanksgiving weekend. It was the #1 movie in the world on Netflix, and it was called The Noel Diary, starring Justin Hartley of This Is Us and famed director Charles Shire, who did Father of the Bride. But it's massive. It's had more than 70 million viewers. It was in the top 10 in 90 out of 93 countries. And New York Times and the LA Times said it was the movie to watch this year. It was the best of all the holiday stories. So a lot of your listeners, because I just got back from book tour, and I can't believe how many people have watched it and how broad. I'm checking into a hotel, and the woman there went crazy and wanted pictures because of the movie. So I learned firsthand the power of Netflix. But this, I've already had a movie offer on my new book, A Christmas Memory. And I'm excited for it.
Well, the whole Christmas movie thing, has really taken off because I do think Christmas is like a reset. It's a reset for the year. It kind of gets you back. Whether you do New Year's resolutions or not, it's a reset where you get back to where you need to be, hopefully, and start over. And you've seen that kind of reflected in all the different kind of Christmas movies. But I just looked it up on Netflix and I put it on my list. I'm going to watch it tonight. Because I've got a young lady. I've got a young lady from Sweden staying with me who's on an exchange, and so we're trying to find great things to watch together. So we're going to watch that tonight.
Actually, Sweden, it was one of the countries that did best. It did better in Sweden than it did in America. It was #1 in Sweden.
Wow.
So, yeah. It's interesting because my mother was Swedish, so I checked to see how it was doing in Sweden. It's like, oh my gosh, it's been #1 every single week. So,
well, they probably claim you because your mother was Swedish. They probably say Richard Paul Evans is a Swedish author.
I don't think they know that. But anyway, it's been such a fun season, and the movie, when you see it, I'm hearing from old high school friends. I just can't believe how ubiquitous it is. I've been flooded by people coming from my past, and just everyone has seen the movie. I mean, if it's 75 million people, it means like 1 out of 3 adults in America have seen it. I mean, it's just that's just in the U.S. 75 million. So these numbers are insane. And so I think my new book, A Christmas Memory, I think it will be an even better movie. I think the story behind it is more powerful.
Do you like the movie process? Because you've several of your books have been made into movies. 8 of them
have been. But this is my first feature film. So this is the first big budget, and to have actors, an actor on the level of Justin Hartley, who I now realize is the most handsome man in America. I mean, women swoon every time I say his name. This process has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed working with Netflix. I did have one movie I did enjoy at all. In fact, I never watched the movie. The producer called me and said they've slaughtered it. They made it woke. They rewrote it, and I said, why did they even buy it when they write their own movie? And he just said it was just horrible. And I said, well, they wrote the check, right? He goes, yeah, they wrote the check. So this one is a whole different experience. The screenwriter contacted me personally before the movie was produced, or even before the script was produced. They respected the book. And Carrie and I got to go to a Hollywood red carpet event, which I always thought would be kind of a dream, and it actually was wonderful. It was really sweet, and so it's been a great year.
Well, the book is A Christmas Memory by Richard Paul Evans. And, the thing that has been great about this journey, I think, for you is not only have you written all these books that people stop you in airports and do all that kind of stuff, but you've also founded the Christmas Box International, which is an organization that provides shelters and aid for abused and neglected children. And that wouldn't have happened without the Christmas Box.
No, and I love that. As I get older, there's things I can see where my life is going. I am now very involved every single day with the Christmas Box House. We have housed more than 135,000 children. That's enough to fill Madison Square Garden 6 times. And this time of the year, we provide Christmas for about 2,500 abused children. And it is so much fun, Martha. It is so much fun. I just love it. In fact, as soon as I finish my interviews today, I have 22 radio interviews today. When I finish, I'm going down to the Christmas Box House and watch them bring presents in, and we distribute them, and we make sure that kids are protected and defended and honored. And I just love it. It just does my heart good.
So we had a caller that texted, or a texter that texted in and said, where can you watch the Christmas Box movie, the one that was made about the Christmas box? Now, I'm looking it up, and it's obviously on Amazon and those other kind of streamings. Is it available pretty much everywhere?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Oh, good. Thanks for telling me. It's next year is the 30. Can you believe this? It's the 30-year anniversary. They've already contacted me. They're working on a 30-year anniversary edition of the Christmas box.
Wow.
So time marches on.
Time does march on.
I just got back from Texas. We have the first doctor in our family. My daughter just graduated from TCU, and I'm just really. It's like, wow, she was a little girl when I wrote the Christmas box. She was 3 years old when I wrote the book for her.
That is so amazing. That is so amazing. Richard Paul Evans, I know the book's available everywhere. People can get it. And I know you've got 22 interviews today, so we want to make sure that you can get to all of those. But it's so great to talk to you again. It was one of the real highlights of my career to meet you when you came to Gainesville those many years ago. And it's one of the things you remember. And it's one of the best things about what I do is I get to meet people like you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Martha. Merry Christmas.
It's where North Georgia comes to talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
It is the Martha Zoller Show. There's so much going on, but it is the season when we get the opportunity to talk about some things that are really important. And On the Road Lending is one of those things. It's a Dallas-based nonprofit. And founder and CEO Michelle Corson is joining us right now. Michelle, how you doing? Merry Christmas.
Hey. Hi, Martha. Merry Christmas to you, too.
So tell us about On the Road Lending.
Well, thanks for having me on and giving me a chance to talk about it. It's an important initiative that we have throughout the United States. The majority of us, about 97% of us trying to get to and from our jobs, do that using personal transportation. We have our own cars. Mass transit is something that doesn't work for most people, and I'm sure that those of your listeners who are in Atlanta know that it's very difficult to make MARTA work as your primary form of transportation, getting your kids to and from school, getting yourself to work, buying groceries, seeing the doctor. All of those things are very difficult. So having a car is really an important part of personal freedom. And On the Road Lending helps people to achieve that by providing an alternative to the guy on the corner that we in Texas call the tote the note lot that charges a high interest rate on a bad car with a bad loan.
Well, it's interesting because we do live we're about an hour north of Atlanta, and so we're in a little more rural area, and in that area, it's even more important to have your own automobile. And there are local businesses here that this is what they do every year is they get a car, they fix up a car and donate it to someone who is really in need. But you're right, it does change the life of someone because especially if you live outside of the metro Atlanta area, you've got to get around by automobile. And
you absolutely do. Yes.
It's the only way you can be a part of the economy is to have your own car.
Right. You're absolutely right. And so much of America is that way. we're really blessed, with such a large land area, and it's very difficult to make anything other than a personal car work for your transportation needs. And for people outside of the metropolitan area, oftentimes that's the difference between working and not working.
No, absolutely. So how does on-the-road lending work?
We are able to do everything online. Since our clients are transportation challenged, we're not asking them to come sit across the table from us anywhere. We're serving 10 states. Anyone that's interested in getting a car loan goes onto our website to apply. Everything is done virtually, and we do it the way that it was done in the old days when your banker actually knew you and knew that you were a good risk. We take a little bit of time. It's not a massive commitment to just get to know the people that we're making a loan to, and we don't use credit scores. We do capture that information because we want to track how much our clients are growing in that regard, getting financially stronger. But we are making them a car loan, so they do have to be working. This is not a car donation. We're giving people the dignity of paying their own way. They're just paying for it with a lower interest rate than they would be with someone else. And more importantly, they're getting a car that's really good. It's a myth that a low-income person cannot afford their own car. And it is also a myth that an electric vehicle is the only option that works for people. Fuel-efficient, newer internal combustion engines are 35% less emitting than an older car was. So we're helping the environment as well by getting people into just decent transportation.
Well, and I think what you bring up is really important because people like to talk about the divide in this country is between left and right or whatever it is. But I think there is a much bigger divide between, with all due respect, because I'm a pretty well-educated person, but a well-educated person that's in the policy world versus people that are on the ground trying to make a living every day. And yeah, it's great to say we should get electric cars. My husband and I have even talked about, well, our next car, we probably ought to think about a hybrid because we live in a rural area. I don't want to have a straight electric car. I would rather have a hybrid. We need to think about that. We can make that decision. But what's happening in the real world on the ground is that the average person that's working an average job that is maybe just starting out, or maybe they're re-entering the workforce, or maybe they haven't worked in a while, they don't think about things in the way that maybe I can buy a $65,000 or $70,000 electric car. They are thinking about it in a way, how am I going to get a car that I can not only afford and have some money left over to pay for rent and gas and utilities and all of that on top of that, and maybe further my career on top of that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of the movement towards we've got to have everything be electric vehicles only does a disservice to the low to moderate income family. I believe, with the scarcity of raw materials that go into the batteries, that the cost of electric vehicles is actually going to go up, not go down. And they're largely not affordable at this time for working families. But a good internal combustion engine is, and we believe that if we can get someone into a car that's 2 to 3 years old, that's what we're looking to do. Then the car can have a warranty so that someone does not find themselves in that situation where they have to choose between paying a $2,000 transmission repair bill or making their car payment. They don't find themselves in that situation, and they can get a nice car. Most of our cars are a 2-year-old Camry, Corolla, a Nissan Altima, a Honda. We do a lot of that. We've done a lot of General Motors and Ford American-made cars as well. And it's amazing, having a nicer, newer car that's safe and reliable is so important and so much better for somebody than actually going in and trying to buy a cash car where, they're taking all of their savings and putting it towards some old junker that's beaten down.
We're talking to Michelle Corson from On the Road Lending. And I think the other part you brought up, which I thought was very good, is that you mentioned about the difficulty in getting the battery, the components to make the battery, and you think prices are going to go up. But the thing that's kind of the dirty little secret about electric cars, and I am not anti-electric cars, they're a lot heavier than the traditional internal combustion engine cars. So they're not paying the road tax yet, but they are causing a lot more problems on the roads because of the heaviness of the vehicles. So it's something. Look, I think innovation, is important, and we're going to get there at some point in time. But right now, the people you're dealing with, they just need to get to work. And
right.
I believe in the American dream that if you can get that leg up, you can get that step where you can get a job and you do good work and you commit to your job, you're going to do better every year. And then a lot of other things are going to open up to you.
Absolutely. And Martha, the thing that a lot of people don't know is that the number one reason that people lose their jobs is because they can't get there reliably. And the other thing that I think is often overlooked is that by having personal transportation, you can access a much better job. I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and we've made loans to people who tripled their income just as a function of being able to drive to the next county and take a better job. And that's meaningful. And saving on interest expense and maintenance costs and a lot of the fees and things that go into buying a car from the typical subprime lender, we are able to help people to build wealth of about $20,000 over the life of the ownership of their car. And so that's real intergenerational poverty change. We're able to help people build prosperity, and that is our goal. It's not really about overcoming poverty because we're dealing with people that work. It's about building prosperity, and you talk about the American dream, and that's what it's all about. The dignity that comes from working and paying your own way and building a life that's productive. It's very hard to do that without transportation.
So, Michelle, tell folks how they can find out more.
They need to go to ontheroadlending.org, O-R-G, and they can find out all about on-the-road lending and how to apply there. If they want to know about some of our other initiatives, we've got 6 companies built around transportation. They can go to ontheroadcompanies.com. In addition to our lending company, we have a collision company. We do paint and body work, and we're having apprenticeships where people can be trained in advanced automotive technology. That's On the Road Garage. We have a car dealership, On the Road Motors, On the Road Sustainability Funds, and a couple of other businesses. So that's ontheroadcompanies.com.
Michelle Corson, thank you so much for being with us today. It's On the Road Lending. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Martha. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Senator Steve Gooch is here with me today from Dahlonega. And, of course, Steve, welcome back to the program. Merry Christmas. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. I'm actually walking into the state capitol, so I'm climbing all these steps, so I may sound like I'm out of breath.
Okay, well, that's good. I know you're not. You're fine. I tell you what, this is going to be a very different session, right? There's a lot of new players. There's a lot of people that are in different positions. So there's a bit of some unknowns, right?
A lot of unknowns, a lot of new faces, new leadership roles, a lot of personalities, egos, and yeah, it's sort of like the Wild West down here right now. People jockeying around for position, moving into new offices, and so a lot of things yet to be settled. So we're going to start the process week after New Year's, and we'll be working, as hard as we can for the next 3 or 4 months.
What do you see as unfinished business from the last session that for you personally, or that you just see on the horizon?
Well, every 2 years we start a new session, and so the legislation that did not pass last year is technically dead. So anybody that did not get a bill passed that wanted it to pass would have to reintroduce it this year as new, which is no big deal. I mean, it just has to go through that committee process again. But, we've got a lot of good things going on at the Capitol. Of course, we have a strong economy, even though we're beginning to see the signs of a modest or mild recession. We have strong revenues. Our rainy day funds are in excess of $6 billion. So I think you're going to see an effort by the Senate and the House and the governor to return a lot of that money to the taxpayers through income tax reductions and some property tax relief as well. So that's going to be good news this year. And I think you're going to see a crackdown on some more crime. We're seeing a lot of homicides in Atlanta, a lot of crime, breaking and enterings, a lot of just random thefts on the streets of Atlanta, the city of Atlanta in particular. And so I think you're going to see a renewed effort and an emphasis on trying to crack down on some of that this session as well.
So, Steve, what you are well known for and have been since you've been serving, and even as far back as being a county commissioner, when you did that, is you're a guy that shows up. You go to basically anywhere you're asked to go. You are a person that people don't have to look for. I mean, that's always been the kind of legislator and representative you have been. What is going to be let people know what your new job is, kind of in addition to representing the people of your district for this session, but also how you keep that up, because it's a very difficult thing to do, and I'm quite impressed that you are still always where you're supposed to be.
Well, my wife asked me recently, she's like, are we still making money? And she's referring to me not being at home very much at our business. We have a small business there in Dahlonega. And so I was elected majority leader recently by the majority caucus in the Senate. And so the majority leader is the top ranking Republican in the state Senate now. And so I just took over that role 2-3 weeks ago. And ever since then, I've just been completely inundated with calls, emails, and, trying to learn the new responsibilities. And once we get into session, I'll be down here for the full 3 months during the week. So that's not going to be a lot different. But it's going to be a lot different for me because I'm taking on additional responsibilities of overseeing the agenda of the Senate and the responsibilities of the Senate, interacting with the House leadership, interacting with the governor, and, of course, the new lieutenant governor. And so I look forward to those new challenges. But my first priority, as always, is my district and the 7 counties that I represent in North Georgia.
So do you see, I guess, have you had an office in the Capitol already? You're definitely going to have one now.
Yeah. I've been in the leadership for 8 years upstairs on the 4th floor. My new office is literally across the hall from the lieutenant governor on the 2nd floor next to the rotunda. So I'll be, more or less on the main floor of the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office.
Great. That's good to know. Because I just think there's such a huge challenge that we're going to have because, first of all, we've got plenty of money, okay, and that's a good thing. But as you mentioned, we see this kind of soft recession that we're coming into. So we don't want to obviously the spending starts on the House side, but we don't want to make decisions that are going to impact us negatively from an economic standpoint. So, I think this is going to be an interesting session to watch. I say all that to mean that it's going to be really interesting because it's different.
It is. And, we've done a good job with the state's business for the last 20 years. The Republicans have been in control, starting with Sonny Perdue. And then, of course, Nathan Deal was there for 8 years. And now Governor Kemp, he begins his 2nd term in January. And we're going to miss some of that leadership we've had from North Georgia. We've lost Speaker David Ralston. Of course, Governor Deal retired after 2 terms. Butch Miller is no longer going to be in the Senate. Casey Cagle is no longer down here. He was in power for many, many years. So a lot of the power we had for decades was centered in North Georgia, and we've lost that. And so I'm glad that I was able to get elected to the majority leader position. At least I'll be able to help pull some of that attention back to North Georgia going forward.
Well, and it's also from a population standpoint, we're growing. We have, I know you do what's best for the people of Georgia, but from a Republican Party standpoint, the 9th Congressional District has either the largest or the 2nd largest number of Republican voters. And certainly, it's one of those things that you have to be aware of. Now, we know that we've got a couple of controversial things that could pop their head up. We've got the heartbeat bill in the courts, and I'm sure that y'all are watching that very closely. And there always is some sort of bill, whether it's whether it's going to be gambling or it's going to be religious freedom or whatever it is. There's some sort of social issue that pops up that we don't expect. Do you have any idea what that's going to be?
There's a lot of attention being placed on what the courts are going to do with the heartbeat bill. I believe the General Assembly is willing to sit by and watch that play out through the courts. We believe strongly that our bill will stand the test of the court system. And so there's no need at this point in time to reintroduce that legislation. We believe it's going to come through in our favor. As far as gambling, there are a good many lobbyists already walking the halls, setting up meetings with legislators to talk about sports betting, casino gambling, and horse racing. Not that all three of those would be on one, single piece of legislation, but I think you could see multiple bills this year pertaining to all three of those topics. There's no idea at this point in time what some of the members of the House and the Senate are going to be working on. The leadership will be having press conferences in the beginning of the year to where we'll roll out our agenda, and we'll have a better idea at that point in time where we're going to spend our time this session and not let some of these other things distract us from our duties down here at the Capitol.
Well, and one thing that I worked on last year when I was helping the Georgia Life Alliance out, as well as something I think is very important, is Senate Bill 456, which was last year. It needs to be reintroduced, but what it did was made sure that if you were going to get the abortion cocktail, the chemical abortion, that you saw a doctor. And that's the way it was before COVID. For some reason, the Biden administration, when they reinstated everything else that they had taken away from having in-person visits because of COVID, they pulled this out separately and still made it to where you could have telemedicine visits. And, the only thing, and this is how I win Democrats over on this issue, even Planned Parenthood says when they give the chemical abortion that you have to come back the next day for them to check you out because you need to be seen in person for that. I think it's a reasonable bill. I think it's something that is in the best interest of the health of a woman. And so hopefully we'll see that come to pass again. And it came very close last session. So hopefully it'll pass this session.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll have a strong interest in that bill down here as well. So we look forward to working with you and your organization on that.
Well, thank you very much. I am no longer the executive director of Georgia Life Alliance, but I helped them out during a very important time. But we are going to be announcing a new one very soon that you're going to like a lot.
Well, so, great. I look forward to hearing
it's going to be great. Steve Gooch, I appreciate very much you being with us today. I appreciate all the time you've given. And I meant every word I say. What I love about you and the way you serve is that you're always available.
Well, I'll take it seriously. We don't do it for the money, obviously, but I love serving and I love helping people when, it's a proper role of government to get involved. That's when I like to get in and help folks. So thank you for that opportunity to be on your show this morning. And for all your listeners, please reach out and communicate with us through email or phone calls. We're here to help you at any time.
Steve Gooch, thanks for being with me today.
Have a good day.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.